Guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast on a mission to inspire a world where food makes us better. Guys, today I have a guest for you as promised. One guest that I've been super excited about. As soon as I finished his book, I'm like, I gotta have this person on the podcast to ask all the questions that I still have left and to share this amazing knowledge that can transform the way you think about exercise and nutrition and health and metabolism. I gotta share this information with you guys. And so I invited Professor Herman Ponzer to Food School Podcast, and we had our chat. And so Dr. Herman Ponzer is Associate Professor of Evolutionary Anthropology and Research Associate Professor of Global Health at Duke University. He investigates how our deep evolutionary past shapes our lives today. His team conducted the first measurements of daily energy expenditure in traditional hunter-gatherers and in non-human apes, with discoveries that have changed the way we think about diet, exercise, metabolism, and health. Dr. Ponzer is the author of this new book that I'm absolutely obsessed with. Burn. New research blows the lid off how we really burn calories, lose weight, and stay healthy. Guys, today with Herman, we're gonna chat about things like why exercise isn't actually good as your primary weight loss strategy, like not good at all from all the evidence we have. What exercise is actually good for? Why being a professional athlete, a person who moves a lot and supposed to be super healthy, well, being a professional athlete actually not that healthy. And if you are a professional athlete training 4, 6, even more hours a day, so how as an athlete you can minimize some negative effects of that intense training? What's good amount of exercise for all of the rest of us, modern screen workers? How much do Hadza, modern hunter-gatherers, the one that Herman and his team researched a lot, how much do they move? Also, what's the biggest difference between the diet of a modern city dweller like you and me and a Hadza hunter-gatherer, modern hunter-gatherer? What's modern hunter-gatherers' diet is like today? What do they eat? How do they eat? Do they fast? Do they snack? When do they eat? What ancestral diets actually looked like? These days you might hear, our ancestors ate this way or that way, or they ate mostly plants or mostly animals. So today you'll learn what science, what data actually shows about ancestral diets. And also we'll chat about why looking at ancestral diets might not necessarily be the thing you want to do if you want to eat healthier. Also, weight loss. We're going to chat a lot about weight loss, of course, about things like why we can't really boost our metabolism, but there are some ways that can help you to slightly increase your metabolism on a regular basis, like some kinds of training, for example. We'll chat about why never-ending calorie restriction leads to eventual harder weight loss and health problems and hormonal problems. What's the best way to actually lose weight, long-term and short-term, and maintain ideal weight? Like how to stick with healthy eating when you want to eat healthy, but somehow you fail to do so. Like, what are some best ways you can try to make it easier for yourself? Also, what are some best foods for weight loss? Yeah, there are those foods that proven to help people to lose weight and maintain it much easier. And then also all of the diets like keto, vegan, paleo, potato diet, intermittent fasting, low carb, low fat, everything and anything in between. Are there better diets for weight loss? Like, what does data actually show? And do those diets, any of them, have anything special about them to make some people lose weight easier. So this and so much more. That was, I love this conversation. I learned so much and I had so much fun, and I'm sure you're gonna learn so much. And most importantly, you're gonna hear from a scientist what actually seems to work according to data, not according to some diet guru. What actually works for health, for weight loss, what's exercise is all about. So you're gonna learn that from somebody who studied that in our ancestors, our modern ancestors, so to speak, and what works better in modern humans when it comes to health and weight loss. So without further ado, let me introduce Herman Ponzer. Dr. Ponzer, Herman, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, let's just jump into that. You wrote this amazing book and did this fascinating research that made me absolutely rethink a lot of concepts in nutrition, diet, health fields. And this is very important, for me as a coach. And so I have a lot of questions that I'd like to clarify to be able to help people better, to give better advice, and to understand myself better, the science of human metabolism and how we work. So, the first question I have for you is about exercise. Doesn't really matter at all how much we exercise or how active we are for I guess the first part is our body weight. It doesn't make a lot of difference in the results.
Yeah, that's a great question. So exercise is super important for your health, but it doesn't have a big effect on your body weight. And so that's been kind of a surprise, I think, to people over the last few years. Although maybe not, maybe it shouldn't be, because there's a lot of good data showing this for years now. But yeah, exercise doesn't have a big effect on your weight.
But exercise does make us burn more energy, doesn't it? If you compare someone, let's say myself, and my average day when I just, work on computer a lot and maybe do a few walks, compared to the days when I'm super active and I go outside, rollerblade, maybe I run, maybe something else. Am I going to burn more calories on those days when I'm super active compared to when I'm not active, or something else is happening there?
Yeah, so that's one of the fun things we've discovered over the last couple of years. So first of all, it's true that day to day, you'll see changes in how much energy you burn. So on an active day, you'll burn more energy than on a resting day. But you would think then that if we compare people who are active all the time for their whole lives to people who are less active their whole lives, the people who are more active their whole lives will burn a lot more calories. But actually, that's not what we see. So, my work, I've looked at hunter-gatherers who are really, really physically active every day, and they have the same energy expenditures as people in Europe and the US who are more sedentary. So, what seems to happen is your body kind of adjusts to your lifestyle. So, if you are active all the time, your body adjusts to that and keeps your average energy expenditure about the same as somebody who is not active all the time, more sedentary. Your body adjusts to that too, if you're that person. And at the end, after you've adjusted, your energy expenditures are the same.
So I guess the main idea here is that our body is always trying to manage our energy the best it can, to save it mostly, because usually, at least in, previously in our past, we never knew where and where we're going to get the energy. So the body, the brain, they had to do everything they could to save as much as possible, right?
Yeah, that's about right. So, your body wants to spend the energy it has available to survive and reproduce. And if it has to spend that energy on activity, it'll do that. But if it doesn't have to spend the energy on activity, it'll spend it on other stuff like immune function, that kind of thing. And so at the end of the day, it'll spend the energy on something. And if you're not active, it'll spend it on things besides activity.
And so another question that I don't think I could find the answer for in the book, if if then we have certain amount of energy coming into, from foods, well, mostly from foods, and we don't use that energy that the body is used to, burning or using for other purposes.
Mhm.
Does this energy, cause that weight gain that, a lot of us are experiencing when we overeat? Does this, like, what it causes? Like, the body has, certain amount of energy it needs for different purposes, and then whatever is extra, it just puts into storage.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, every calorie of body that you carry around, right? Every ounce of you, and we can think about all of the ounces of you as calories. Those are all calories of food that you ate and haven't burned off. And so, if you eat more calories than you burn off over the long term, over days and weeks, then eventually that you'll see that adding up as fat.
Mm-hmm. And if I understand it correctly, uh, that energy expenditure that every individual needs, like, per day, that depends mostly not on the activity but on the body size and also specifically lean body mass, right?
Yeah, so you have to think about, I think this is a surprise for some people. And one of the things I like to cover in the book is, most of the energy that you burn every day, even you, who I'm sure are very active, even you, the most of the energy that you burn every day is not on activity. Most of it is on things like your liver and your, immune system and digestive system and your brain and, keeping your cells alive, all those sort of normal housekeeping tasks that you never see. It's beneath the surface. You never pay attention to it. But to give you an example, your brain runs a 5K every day, right? Your brain burns 300 calories a day every day. And so that's just a good example of one thing, that one way your body spends energy that you never notice. And so that's right. So the size of you, how big you are, especially how much lean mass you have, tells us how many cells are active. And that tells us that's the best one. If you had to pick one predictor of how many calories you burn, that's the best predictor.
Mm-hmm. And if I understand it correctly, it means that if we increase our lean body mass, right, like we build up some muscle, that we do increase our energy expenditure by some number.
Yeah. So if you do the kind of exercise that is building muscle, then you'll see your energy expenditure go up a little bit. The every kilogram of muscle that you add, you would expect, and it'll be different for some people, but be around 40 kilocalories a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not much.
Not much. No, that's 10 M&Ms.
Yeah. But still, I guess, it's better than nothing. And over
Sure.
the course of many days, it does accumulate. So building clean body mass might be, one of those things that can increase our metabolism a little bit. And another thing that, I found very fascinating is that, I don't know, magic number for me, 2.5 times basal metabolic rate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I found it interesting because, you would think, I used to think that if you are, let's say, a professional athlete and you like super active training 5-6, hours a day intensely, and you burn all these calories, that if you eat that much, calories, then you'll be fine. Like your body will have all the energy for, recovery and all the activities it needs to do. But, it seems that it's not the case, right? The body has the limit on like how much energy it can metabolize and use.
Yeah, that's right. So, it's for something like the Tour de France, right? You can burn 7,000 calories a day or something like that. I forget the exact number. But that's more than your energy than your body can put back in. Or for that matter, like a triathlon, for example, you might burn 10,000 calories, but that's more energy than your body can put back in over that same amount of time. And so it seems like the amount of energy that your body can put back in terms of, taking in food, absorbing the energy, absorbing the nutrients, getting it into your blood, into your body, that limit of replenishing yourself, refueling, is about 2.5 times basal metabolic rate, like you say. So for most people, that's around 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day. Anything above that, and you're going to be losing weight. And we think that this is one of the reasons that people who don't have an off season, right, who don't don't have rest seasons, that push against this metabolic ceiling too much, have overtraining syndrome kind of problems.
Yeah, I hear it. Well, I work with athletes also that women might lose their periods, and guys might lose their hair, or like, performance will decrease in a lot of other areas. Immune system will like work much worse, and people get sick after all the training. So it seems, like what I really got from this is if you are a professional athlete and you always like training, you need to really get better at managing your recovery time and your downtime if you don't want to have like long-term negative health consequences and problems.
Yeah, that's right. So, I think about it like, people have talked about overtraining syndrome or female triad, or people call it different things. Like it's, some binary event that happens at some point, like click, and all of a sudden you're overtraining syndrome. I think about it like this, that, as you're more and more active, as you exercise more and more every day, and your body adjusts to that exercise level, it starts taking energy away from other things. And normally that's good, right? Mm-hmm. So if you exercise more, you might not burn more calories every day, but your body is instead spending fewer calories on things like inflammation or stress reactivity, right? Or keeps your reproductive hormones in a healthier place, not sky high, like if you're really sedentary. So that's good, right? But then it's kind of a sliding scale. And as you go towards more and more and more and more activity, at some point, you can't you can't stop doing things like inflammation. You sort of run out of the easy things to stop doing, and you start having to cut into things that are actually really important, like really basic immune function and kind of healthy reproductive function. And so that now you have slid into this area of overtraining syndrome, and it's the same thing. It's the same process that made exercise healthy at that kind of moderate level, but it's that metabolic adaptation taken to the extreme becomes unhealthy.
Yeah. I also, it reminds me of like this statement that I heard from many people about that exercise. It's even, if we exercise not as professional athletes, it's still a mild stress for the body. And so the idea is that you don't ever want to overdo stress. Like some stress is good, to test our system to make them stronger, but unmanaged stress and a lot of it all the time is not a good idea. It seems. So yeah, like that's, I guess, well, the next question, actually, I'm also always wondering, like, okay, I understand it more or less for professional athletes that really push that metabolic boundary. But what do you think? Maybe you have some data about people in high performing circle, be that, mental work, entrepreneurs, people who push their boundaries not necessarily in physical performance, but in mental performance, or also a lot of biohackers, always trying to like boost this and boost that. And, it always makes me think it probably makes our body also rethink how it spends energy, Yeah, let me know, like, if there is data, what you personally think about that, how it can positively or negatively affect our overall health.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are so many kind of directions you could go with that. And I think it's a really important point. I would say, where I would start is that we have to think about how the human body evolved. I think that's a really important place to start with any of these questions about health and lifestyle, is like, what are our bodies evolved to do? What is evolved to be normal for us, right? And up until very recently, for the past 2.5 million years, humans and our ancestors have been hunting and gathering, and that's an active lifestyle. Yes, there's stress, but also there's periods where it's not stressful, and you have the sort of strange stresses that we've built ourselves in our modern lives aren't there. There's not an alarm clock, and there's not a deadline, and there's not, these kind of things. And so I think just like we want to be physically active, why does exercise is so good for us? Well, it's because as a species, humans are evolved to be physically active. We've been physically active for 2.5 million years. And if we take that out of our lives in cities and towns, industrialized world, we get sick. So we have to put it back in the form of exercise. Well, the extreme amount of psychological stress and, money stress and time stress that we put on ourselves in our modern lives is also unnatural. And so we have to find a way, I think, to try to get a bit more balance back. And anytime that you are stressed all the time with your job or something like that, that's going to be one of those drivers to make you overconsume, actually. Well, it can go two ways. One is you can be so stressed all the time that you're so full of adrenaline and cortisol, and that you can actually kind of burn more calories that way, or at least suppress your appetite that way, and you don't get so hungry, and that's not healthy. Mm-hmm. Or if you have chronically high levels of cortisol for a long, long time, you end up that can lead to central adiposity and putting more weight on. So it's a bunch of bad things, basically. And so you want to try to get some balance in your life. If you feel like you're out of balance, then of course, it's going to have all kinds of impacts everywhere.
Yeah, thank you for this answer. It's a really, great point about stress and a lot of it. And also probably that drives increases energy in the short term, compromising some, systems that might be and are important long term. But another thing, I guess I wanted to understand is about using different supplements, trying to, boost testosterone or, some other hormones. And I wanted to understand, might it be also not as good because you kind of pushing your body into the direction where it might not be as beneficial, because you never know, if you push one thing, what's going to, be compromised.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, so there's, different classes of boosters and enhancements and that kind of thing. There's a whole group of things that just don't work. So they're just lies, so pretty much anything that says it's going to boost your metabolism is not true. And then you get to things like, people who use hormones and steroids are basically hormone mimics. And those can be really dangerous. Those absolutely can change your metabolism because they're sending your body a sort of a strange set of signals, that normally your body wouldn't be experiencing. So that can change your metabolism. It can have, if something like testosterone is a hormone that has effects throughout the body. And, if you aren't taking that in some kind of careful way, maybe you might be prescribed it by a doctor. That's one thing. But if you just sort of go out on your own and decide to start taking testosterone or using it, it's really dangerous because it has huge effects throughout the body.
Mm-hmm. And so, basically we just don't know how it's going to turn out.
No, that's right. And the other fun thing is testosterone. If you have extra testosterone, there's a thing called aromatase that changes it into estrogen. And so people who dose with a lot of testosterone end up getting actually filling their bodies with estrogen too. So that can have unexpected consequences.
Yeah. Again, before boosting anything, I guess we need to think more about it, because we don't really know how it's gonna turn out. But about boosting metabolism, obviously it seems that long term, not many things can change our metabolism at all. It's fixed at a certain point, and that's it. But what I find fascinating that our metabolism can change the other way. Meaning, for example, if somebody is dieting all the time and they are restricting, their calories all the time for weight loss, right? Like those shows, Biggest Loser, or I forgot what's the name of it. It seems that, our metabolism is more flexible the other way, meaning that because the priority is saving energy, so our metabolism can in fact slow down and can slow down for quite some time, depending, on the dieting period. And then it can create this whole range of negative consequences for whole body health. Can you expand a little bit more on that? Why it might be happening, how it might be happening?
Yeah, again, again, the perspective you start with is you are an evolved organism, right? Your body is evolved to survive and reproduce. And so if you give your body the signal that there's no food in your environment, that you are starving to death, right? I mean, that's what a crash diet will do. then your body has this old evolved trick, and it's not just humans. You see this in all sorts of species. But you have this old evolved trick that says, okay, we're going to put the brakes on everything. And you just take your metabolic rate way down. And all of a sudden, you might be eating 1,000 calories less a day or something really extreme like that. But your body goes, okay. And so it just burns 1,000 calories less a day. And so you don't actually see much weight change. And instead, you have these really big impacts throughout your body, with your body sort of, not spending the calories it needs to spend on some things, perhaps. But it's a survival strategy for your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I work with people or just talk with friends about like different weight loss attempts that they're doing, and I'm often like surprised to hear that, for example, some friend of mine, he's a guy and he might be trying to lose weight on this 1,500 calories diet, and he's been like doing it for months on end. And he's like, why it's not working, and I'm like, always, like, you are starving your body. Your body's priority is to survive, not to burn fat. And if your body senses that there is always not enough energy, it's not going to work with you.
Right. Yeah.
And I find that a lot of people still don't understand that this is happening, that a lot of times the body will work against that, the dieting strategy, because its first priority is to survive, keep you alive, keep person alive. So
yeah, right.
And you also, wrote in the book, like, gave a few examples from this Biggest Loser show that even after several years, many of those people who participated and were on this, very stressful regime of a lot of exercise and diet, they still have that low metabolic rate, that the body doesn't seem to restore that fast. And do you think it's also, with this lower metabolism, the negative effects on the health overall are still happening, like maybe compromising immune function or reproductive health?
Yeah, we don't really know what the kind of consequences are for that. That's something that people need to study more and follow up more. We know that the body, like you say, it still has this effect, this lower metabolism, even years after the big diet, the big crash diet in the Biggest Losers participants. But, how this affects immune function, that kind of thing, I don't think we have that kind of data yet. It'd be fun to follow that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would be something interesting to explore. But then, another question a lot of people would probably have, like, okay, so if this dieting strategy, 15 calories or some extreme amount of calories doesn't work, and exercise doesn't really help, so what should I do? Like, how am I supposed to, create this weight loss program that actually works?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's challenging, right? I mean, if it was easy, and if there was some simple solution that people were hiding from you or something like this, right? Then there would be no diet industry, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the exercise industry that says that you can exercise for weight loss would be gone as well. And so I think, I don't pretend to have the answer to that. That's sort of the simple answer, but I think what we know is a couple of things. First of all, diet is really the only way that you're going to have big effects on your weight, right? Mm-hmm. Everything else has a small effect. So you need to really focus on the foods you're eating if you want to change your weight or even manage your weight in a healthy way. Okay, so what about those foods? Well, you want to, there's no secret here. You need to have a diet that, if you want to lose weight, you have to have a diet that you're bringing in fewer calories than you're burning off. It's really that simple. Then the question is, how do you do that? Mm-hmm. And that's where the big, that's where it gets really hard. Diets that have higher protein, okay, or have higher fiber, mm-hmm. those tend to make you feel full on fewer calories. And on the other hand, diets that have a lot of ultra processed foods, right? So ready to eat meals and snacks and sugary beverages and, things with a long ingredients list and an advertising campaign. Those foods are full. They are engineered in a laboratory to make you eat too much. I mean, literally, that's exactly what they're built to do. And of course, they do it, right? I mean, they're successful. So if you can avoid ultra-processed foods, try to pick foods that are high in fiber and high in protein. That's a good way to start trying to manage your diet. And that might look different for different people, right? If you will say, okay, well, high protein, okay, well, and fiber, I'm going to eat, chicken and steak and fish, and I'm going to have green vegetables for my fiber. And hey, that's one way to do it. Or if you say, okay, I'm going to have a plant-based diet, lots of fiber, get my beans and legumes and get my plant proteins, and right, that can work too. Right, and both of those ideas can work, and they do work for people. So you see people who have low carb diets that work really well for them, meat-based diets. You see people who have vegan and that kind of diets that work. You see everything in between. But what makes me crazy is that then, right, you go to Twitter and these people are yelling at each other about my diet's better than yours, right? And that's crazy. It's all the same principles, really. It's just it's what tastes good to you, what feels good to you is going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, and ultimately, what I found, I experimented with so many diets over the course of my life too. Ultimately, what works is what the person can maintain long term without too much suffering or feeling deprived.
Yeah.
What food make a certain person feel fuller, enjoy it more. But then another thing, I'm always curious about, because I'm always curious about those things. Different diets, like for example, keto diet or a lot of mono diets. A lot of them, I think, might work also because they might make our metabolism or digestive process not as efficient. What I mean by that is, for example, a lot of people in keto diet movement, they say, oh, you can eat, as much as you want, as long as you counting your carbs and keeping glucose low and you're in ketosis, etc. But and sometimes I think I understand that there people might be eating less even though they think they eat more. But also what I think about sometimes is maybe our digestive system, or at least for a lot of people, is not designed that well to metabolize a lot of fat every day. And so what ends up happening, a lot of that fat will end up, just going out of the body, not really digested, because the body is I don't need much more fat.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Digestive system being not as efficient on certain diets or, nutrient split.
Yeah. No, that's tough. I don't know for sure. I don't think we've done the research to know that for sure. That's one possibility. I will say that you're getting at one really important piece of this, which is that people will tell you, right? Oh, I can eat whatever I want on this diet, right? And so because they feel like they can eat everything they want, and that's great. If you have a diet that you feel like you can eat whatever you want and you're still at a good weight, hey, you stick with it.
Yeah.
But then it becomes, not only do I eat whatever I want, but I'm eating more calories than I'm burning, and I'm still, losing weight, which isn't true. That really can't be true. So what has to be happening for those people is that, the food is just so filling and so nice that they feel full, even though they really haven't eaten that many calories. They think they have, but they really haven't. Or maybe, like you're suggesting, they're eating those calories and somehow they're not getting processed. They're just passing through. That's an interesting idea we could test. I don't know that we have good evidence for that, but it's possible.
Yeah, it's just from, working with a lot of clients who are either on keto diet or trying to do it. What I notice, they very often would say that, their bathroom stuff became more fatty and liquidy. Yeah. And I guess a lot of, that undigested fat, because, you have to release, the body has to release bile to digest that fat and a lot of other, the digestive enzymes. So the digestive system might not be just handling that. And they might feel full, but a lot of that stuff just goes out,
Yeah, could be. I'll say, there's another funny piece of that. If there's a famous set of famous examples of people on the potato diet, right? And I don't know if you know about this or if you know anybody who uses this, but I'm not suggesting it. I don't recommend this diet at all. But what people do is they say, I'm only going to eat potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really feel like you need to, you can take some vitamins or something like this. But really, potatoes have a lot of nutrients. And so I guess they get away with it. And they only eat potatoes. And you can't put any salt on it, any butter, nothing like that, just potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And now look, all it is starch, right? Basically, a little bit of protein, but mostly just starch and that's about it. And guess what? People lose weight like crazy, right? Now it's not a keto diet. In fact, it's the opposite of a keto diet. And those people on the potatoes, they'll tell you they stop eating because they cannot possibly eat more potatoes, right? Because they're tired of it. And they feel very full, but they're full of potatoes. And so, it's like, I think that's the kind of thing just people are just as likely to do with keto is, sure, you feel really full because how much more steak can you eat,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a piece of it. If you limit your diet, then you kind of get tired of it faster and feel full and don't have other things.
Yeah, I mean, that probably, sensory satiety also has to do with that. And also, I believe, in the case of potato diet, I also think that partly weight loss might be happening because, well, if somebody is not eating, the fats that they need for different metabolic purposes or, certain proteins, the body will start, using what's inside of the body because, you're not getting that. And there is nothing magic about potatoes. And, speaking about magic diets, there's like so much about ancestral diets, out there that people also trying to justify a certain nutritional approach because that's how our ancestors ate. And I really, loved in your book that, you pointed out that, people just, opportunistic omnivores and they ate whatever was available. And then the second thing is, what I loved, to hear in your book, to read in your book is that you said something along the lines that what our ancestors did might not necessarily be the best thing to do. They did it because it was there. Yeah,
that's right. I've had the chance to actually work with hunter-gatherers and live with hunter-gatherers in the course of my work. And I talk a lot about that throughout the book. Because those experiences have really shaped the way I think about what hunting and gathering is like, and of course we were all hunting and gathering. So the group I work with, they're called the Hadza, and, they're modern humans just like we all are. But they have a culture that is held on to a lot of those hunting and gathering traditions. And so it's a way to look at and think about what hunting and gathering is all about. And I can tell you that, their hunting and gathering diet is very carb heavy for one thing. They eat a lot of root vegetables, of tubers. They eat a lot of honey, which is just sugar and water. They like meat. Sure, of course they do. But their diet's really pretty balanced, about half animal and half plants and honey. And it's really variable day to day, week to week. They aren't strict about it. They aren't like, oh my gosh, I can't eat that because I'm trying to stay keto. In fact, we've never measured. We've tested for urinary ketones, which isn't as sensitive as a blood test, but we've never seen urinary ketones in any of our samples with the Hadza. So when you actually live with hunter-gatherers, and then you read some fairy tale about the way that paleo diets and hunter-gatherers were supposed to be, and it's just you just have to laugh because it's not like that at all. And like you say, even if it were, that doesn't mean that that's the best way to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Keto people in keto movement also love to talk about the diets of people in Antarctica, and that they eat a lot of fat and they are totally fine. I'm sure they're not dying, but I don't think they're thriving on their diet either, at least from what I've read. So again, meaning, here people just eating what's available, not because it's the best, but because it's there. And they're on keto, not because they want to be, eating that much fat, but because they have to.
Yeah.
So that's, I loved reading all these Hadza stories in your book and how they just do what makes sense in their situation, not choosing the same, that when I was reading about them in your book, I realized how a lot of theories about intermittent fasting also don't really I don't think they represent our past or, present of Hadza, that hunter-gatherer tribe. Like they eat when they can and they, whenever there is opportunity. Right?
Yeah. The intermittent fasting thing is another one of those you hear people, oh, back in our ancestral past, of course, this was normal. We always would fast. And you think, well, no, you ate whenever you could. And and maybe sometimes, maybe a couple of times, maybe once or twice a year, maybe, I don't know, maybe less often than that, then you would have a bad period and you'd have to survive. And but the idea that, you would never eat in the morning or something like that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. From this perspective, I also never advertise like intermittent fasting. I'm a huge fan of it because it works for me, but I never say, that's how everyone ate before. That's why we should do it.
Right. Yeah.
That's, those Hadza stories, probably the most fascinating for me parts of the book. They like stories of how people live in that, part of the world where civilization hasn't impacted their lives that much yet. Speaking about civilization and processed foods and, throughout the book, especially at the end, you mentioned that carbohydrates, fats, all of that, it's not really that important and calories aren't really that important. But what's important is for us to recreate, and in certain parts of the world maintain the environment where we aren't eating, processed foods, where we aren't surrounded by all that stuff that our brain, makes us overeat because it's so rewarding. So you see solution in changing the environment, right? The one that we manufactured for, to create obesity and to move very little. You see the solution in creating other kind of environment that will help us to eat better and move more and live better, right? So could you expand a little bit more on that? Like, why do you think that is the solution instead of, dietary guidelines or just trying to say people what's good or what's bad?
I think first of all, we've built ourselves in the industrialized world. We've built ourselves a very strange kind of zoo that we live in, right? We built these human zoos that we live in every day. And just like you might expect, if you let the animals at the zoo build their own enclosures, right? Imagine what they would look like. They'd be full of soft beds and all the crazy foods that they would love. And, and they would get really sick because they would be eating foods that aren't actually good for them. And so we've done that to ourselves. And, if we've built these environments for ourselves, we can hopefully build them better. I think telling people what to do doesn't always have a big effect. The dietary guidelines, I think, is so funny. People blame the dietary guidelines for obesity. And I think, well, how many Americans do you think could tell you the dietary guidelines? I mean, nobody could. I would have a hard time trying to remember the dietary guidelines. And I work in this space a little bit. So I don't think that it affects things very much. And I think that people know that they're supposed to get some physical activity, get some exercise. I think they know that they should probably avoid, Coca-Cola and snacks. I think they know that. I think the tough thing is that when they go to the store, right, they're presented with a really tough choice. And that is, you can have all of this delicious food for cheap, or you can have all of this healthy, sometimes less delicious food and it's expensive. And in some places in the world, you don't even have the other option. In some places in poor parts of the US, for example, you might not even have the option to buy fresh vegetables, for example. You might not have that in your store that's near you. And so I think, we need to change the way that we manufacture and sell our food so that people are, if they do the easy thing, they actually do the healthy thing. Because right now people do the easy thing and it's the unhealthy thing.
Yeah.
Right. And they aren't choosing to be unhealthy. They're choosing to do the easy thing. What's cheap tastes good. Right. Yeah. If you change what the easy thing is to what's healthy, then maybe you'll change behavior. Maybe you'll change people's health. I think that has to be how we try to do it.
Yeah, I'm such a huge believer in the same thing because, also working with people, a lot of times people like, yeah, I want to eat, vegetables and fish and all this food, but, they don't operate in takeout, and I don't have time to cook, and
Hmm.
I don't have time to really shop for and then learn how to
Hmm.
prepare and cook. And this is like, become very complicated compared to just, eat some ready to eat meal or a takeout or the processed shake or bar. It's just so much easier, like the processed, the unhealthy foods.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, and if you are, if you don't have a lot of money, then often the cheap foods are the processed foods. So if you're trying to feed your family and you don't have a lot of money, then you might make the decision that you'll buy whatever is the most filling for the least amount of money, and often that's the also not a good option. Um, yeah, so I think it's a really important point, and I don't expect that we'll be able to change the supermarkets, you know, this year. But what you can change right now is what's in your house. So if you have the means to do it, and you can go and shop at a nice place and has good food, well, if you bring bad food home, then you'll eat it. So try to bring good. I mean, it sounds so silly, it's so simple, but I think it kind of comes down to that a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, it works so well. A lot of times people would ask me like, how do you eat so healthy? And I'm like, well, in my house, there is nothing unhealthy. If I get hungry, there is only like tuna, vegetables,
Yeah.
fruit, like,
Hmm.
and often, the moments when we crave those, I don't know, tempting comfort foods are like late at night or, when we are low on energy and something. And if we don't have anything in our house that is, processed and junk food, then we are already so low on energy. We probably just forget about it and just eat whatever
Hmm.
healthy is available.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a really amazing point. And also the same, I guess, goes, to exercise. Like if exercise is easy, if it becomes norm, if, for example, at workplaces, a lot of people work remotely right now. If they would, like, for example, schedule exercise break. And so you are
Hmm.
supposed to go and take this exercise break. People would do that.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And,
I think that's right. Yeah, I'm a big fan of getting exercise into your whole day, right? So not just an hour. I mean, if you schedule the break, that's great. You should do it. But even do other things too. Try to get out and walk the dog, and walk to the store if you can, or whatever, and just try to make movement happen throughout the day, and you'll get more built up that way than you will if you only have that hour at the gym.
yeah, I actually, like to advise people to take or do fitness snacks or fitness breaks.
Hmm.
So every 30 minutes or, every hour, just do something like do 10 squats, do 10 lunges, do like 10 wall push-ups, just something. Or
Hmm.
yeah, again, 5-minute walk up and down the stairs. So that seems to be the best to maintain like fitness long term without having to exercise all that much. And speaking about exercise and how much, yeah, the question is how much should people aim for when it comes to physical activity in their day, and what kind of maybe intensity?
Well, I think for most of us, more, the answer is just more. You're probably not getting enough. Now, if you're this kind of person who's getting, over the course of the week, you're already getting a 2.5, 3 hours of exercise in, if you add it up over the week, well, then maybe you can begin deciding what flavor of exercise you prefer. And for that, I think, it's a little bit like food. If it's something that you enjoy, you'll do it. And it's something that you don't like, you won't. And it's better to have exercise that you love than maybe what somebody might prescribe to you as the perfect exercise. So I don't get too fussed about what kind of intensity, that kind of thing. I'll say that, if you can get your heart rate up a bit, it's sort of the minimum intensity you should be aiming for. And this would be a better question for you. Honestly, I'm an anthropologist, but as far as I can tell from the physiology, the intensity to aim for is something that's, something like walking to get the bus before you miss it, kind of thing. That brisk
Uh,
walk and above, anything there and above it is probably going to be good for you. And yeah, but again, I'm not a physical trainer. I just do the physiology.
Yeah, but as an anthropologist, you probably noticed how hunter-gatherers, Hadza do it, like how much
Oh
exercise
yeah,
they get.
sorry. Yeah, so they're active throughout the day, and almost all of their activity is walking. You know,
Hmm.
and they walk fast. They're not sort of being lazy. They're on their way. And then then you break that up with some more intense stuff. So women might spend an hour of the day, not all at one time, but they might spend an hour over the day digging up tubers, which is hard work with a wooden stick
Hmm.
and digging into rocky ground. Men might take some breaks from hunting to climb up into trees and chop into the trees and get honey out of the hollow branches. That kind of thing. So, and every day is different. They're always mixing it up. But it's a lot of sort of low and moderate activity, intensity activity with some bursts of high intensity stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, that's, what I thought
Yeah.
could be happening. Um, and then the second, question more on exercise, like what do you personally do? Like, how do you maintain
Mm.
your fitness?
Yeah, not enough is the answer again. Uh, you know, um, I try to practice what I preach, but I've got two little kids and a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job, and so I find it challenging, like everybody else does, I think. But I try to get out. I try to make sure I'm walking my dog at least once a day on a nice long walk. I try to get out and play outside with my kids, and the things that I do just for me that's a little bit more high intensity is I run and mountain bike. So I do that
Hmm.
for kind of cardio, and I just enjoy to be outside. And then rock climbing is the other thing I really enjoy. And that's harder. You need more time to do that. And it's a little bit challenging to fit in. Um, but that's when I can find the time. I really enjoy climbing.
Yeah, I mean, climbing is hell of a workout, like your whole body gets
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
And on nutrition side, do you have do you mind sharing with people a little bit of your routine? Like, do you do
Sure.
intermittent fasting or anything, or
No, I
just
mean, I think it's a pretty boring diet. I'm sorry. I, I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sometimes I even have an evening snack, to be honest. But no, I try to I stay away from processed foods, just because I think it's kind of gross how much weird stuff is in there.
yeah.
But uh, I I eat the kinds of foods that my grandparents would recognize. I eat breads and fruits and vegetables and fish and meat and rice. I'm not
Mhm.
really strict about anything. I try to eat whole foods. I eat organic when I can, but not even for the health things so much as I think that the farming practices are better. Um, and yeah, and I try to avoid overly processed foods. Although, the thing is too,
Mhm.
I mean, I have snacks. I have. I'm not perfect.
Nobody is.
Yeah.
But you, as you mentioned, most of the time it's like 3 meals a day, probably kind of like the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so long term, it seems that people who do that works really well for them. And just curious, did you notice, like with Hadza, for example, do they eat close to bedtime or not, or is it like really random?
They will. They'll snack on what kind of whatever's around. Um, so one thing that's interesting about it is that they get about as much sleep as we do. So
Hmm.
they get about 7 or so hours a night of sleep. And so the sun goes down. You're on the equator, so it's always 12 hours of sun and 12 hours of dark. And the sun goes down about 6 or so in the evening,
Hmm.
and they're up until 10 or so chatting. And I don't really know. Usually that time of night, they're kind of in their camp and hanging out, talking to each other, and we don't bother them. We try not to bother them more than we need to, of course,
Hmm.
but we don't really bother them that time of night. But they're snacking, that kind of thing. But I don't think we have sort of careful observations and data on that. But yeah,
Hmm.
they'll snack a bit, but it would be more of what they had during the day. It'll be berries and tubers and that kind of thing. It's nothing. They don't have snack food, right? The kind of
Hmm.
super
Yeah, for
sweet or
sure.
super salty kind of stuff that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, about the
Oh,
thing
sure.
because there is like a whole thing about like not eating anything close to a bedtime. So that's why I was curious how it works there.
Yeah.
where people still following more or less natural cycles.
Yeah.
So thank you for this amazing interview, Herman. I'm not going to be holding you any longer, even though I have like countless of questions about human evolution and nutrition and anything in between. So thank you for, again, your time. Thank you for sharing. And I guess where people can find you, where people can learn more about your, book, your work, your insights, where it's the best place to follow your work and also get your book.
Sure. Well, you can get the book anywhere you buy books. So you should go check out your corner independent bookstore. And if you don't have access to a good one, you can get it at Amazon or any of the other places you buy your books these days. The book's called Burn, like you said. And so I hope people will check it out if they are interested in this stuff. We are an active research group here at Duke University, so you can check us out online at our lab webpage as well. And then if you want to find out more about the Hadza, including their culture, as also the work that we do there and some of the things that we do to help give back to that community and support them, you can check out the website hadzafund.org. So it's HADZAFUND.org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna link all of this in the show notes. Like any social media where you're more or less
I'm most active. Yeah, I have dabbled in all of them, but I'm most active on Twitter. So I'm at Herman Poncer on Twitter. You can find me there.
Yeah, I'm gonna link that in the show notes too. And the last, do you have any partial, like the last piece of advice for people to maintain long-term ideal body weight or close to that and fitness, like from everything that you've learned?
So let's think. Diet and exercise are two different tools for two different jobs.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. You can't run enough to earn your donut. You have to, diet for weight, exercise for everything else, and get outside. I think, we spend so much of our days inside, and being outside means you're moving. It means you're not next to the refrigerator. You're probably doing something healthy. So if you can get outside more, I promise that's a good way to start staying more healthy.
Yeah, that's amazing advice, especially about diet and exercise being different tools. So I love it. Totally agree with that. So thank you for this piece of advice. I'm sure I'm going to make it into some sort of tweetable.
Sure.
And yeah, thanks again for your time. And I wish you the best of, luck and more insights and about your work and what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela. It was so fun to be on your show. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.